Bada bing, bada boom. And then we were live, Keith. So we got Sodak Fantasy Guy, we got David at Sack Experts, and we're doing some run pass options this morning. Man, I'm glad to be here. We don't have COVID, so we got to be thankful for that. We're
Yeah.
healthy. Matt's healthy, fantasy salesman. He's in the background. Everyone send your best to him. And we're starting the morning off with hearing that the Patriots and the Broncos game is canceled. So wow, we've already getting tweets from what Melvin Gordon talking about how he's upset that wow, like he practiced all week, he didn't have any days off, and now he's having to plan for the game next week, and that means what the Miami Dolphins game is going to be postponed next week, right?
Yep. They haven't announced the actual schedule change to when that game's going to get moved to, but yeah, at this point, that one's obviously moved on, and we get Patriots Broncos next week. So, I guess if there's any good news from it, you're talking about the potential of getting Cam Newton back there, more than likely. So you'll get him for one more game this season that you didn't think you'd have him. And outside of that, it's just scramble. What do you do if you were trying to play, James White and N'Keal Harry, maybe Burkhead, Damian Harris with a good showing. So you got to make some changes there. Obviously Edelman, and then your Broncos guys, if you're playing a Melvin Gordon, Tim Patrick, if you were thin, another guy that was probably active in some rosters this week, and then Jerry Jeudy. So make some
Yeah,
moves.
no,
Make it happen, guys.
and a game where we're expected to see what Rypien versus like Stidman. Now we're going to be able to see Locke versus Cam Newton. So I think that's a great
Exactly.
point, Keith. So I think if there's a positive out of that, we're getting to see more premier quarterbacks. We're getting back, some of these guys that we didn't expect to play. Yeah, I think it sucks for the players because they practice all week. Normally they'd have a bye, they'd be out in Miami on a beach or something like that, and resting their bodies. I think that gets lost in the mix too because in this violent game, they need to rest their bodies and their minds. But these guys were practicing all week, expecting to play, and now their bye week is pretty much nothing. So,
Exactly.
uh,
No, that's yeah. I mean, that's a great point too, David. Is the fact that yeah, I mean, I think the casual fan, the casual viewer is probably looking at it and saying, well, they still get the bye week, and like you just said, this is not a traditional bye week in that sense. These guys game prepped all week, and now they're gonna get today off, possibly tomorrow, and then they're gonna roll back in and coaches are going to approach it at the aspect that, hey, now we get 2 weeks to prepare for the same team that we were expecting to see. And obviously coaches are going to take advantage of that opportunity to prepare more. But you can definitely understand why the players are going to be a little upset with this and possibly disgruntled. But, you just roll with the punches we're given.
exactly. And I think that, we're going to get back into the details now because now that puts fantasy football, managers in a awkward position. When we're already having buys of, Kenny Galladay and Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford and, the Aaron Joneses, all these like top tier players are already out. And now you're going to be, of course, you're going to be without some of these other players, like a Melvin Gordon and, like you said, a Jerry Judy. And, so oh, are your teams in? Have you gone through your list of teams and like how has that affected you, Keith?
For me personally, I've actually with with this game I'm unscathed. Um, waiting to hear what we find out with that Bills Titans game next because that one has not obviously been announced yet, but they're in the same predicament. Exactly. Now that one has got some implications. I don't know many people out there that aren't going to be impacted with that game when you're talking Josh Allen, Singletary, Diggs. With the Titans, you're talking Derrick Henry, who was a first-round pick for a lot of cats, Jonnu Smith.
AJ
I'm
Brown.
an AJ Brown owner. I already had him on the bench. I've got enough receiver depth in the lineup where I do have him, or the league where I do have him. So for me, again, that's almost a positive. with what's going on, I had the depth. If they end up moving this, I don't know how they will, given the fact that the Titans have already been bumped once. But if they do, that gives me, AJ Brown one more week. So we'll just wait and see what happens. But I mean, that game there, realistically, I would think had more, potential fantasy implications for folks across the country than the Patriots Broncos game. Just given the cast of players that you had in that Bills Titans game, and so we'll see what happens. I'm keeping an eye on the phone to see if we get an updated alert there with that schedule, but nothing yet.
Yeah, I'm seeing from Pro Football Focus that it seems like it's obvious, but they're saying that we're going to expect some clarification in the next couple hours. Which is pretty obvious at this point, but it's just kind of like, geez, at what point do we find out before the 10 a.m. games? Because it's like that really lowers everyone's options, because for me, I have Singletary in multiple leagues. I have, I think 18 teams, and, Singletary is probably in about 6 or 7 of them. And he's been a surefire starter, and Josh Allen is in, some of my teams too. So I'm just like, and there's one team specifically I'm thinking of right now where I have Josh Allen and Cam Newton as my quarterbacks. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is not good. I'm thinking, and I'm doing really well in that league. So I'm just like, goodness gracious, I need to be ready to pivot. But we talked about this, we've talked about how COVID was going to affect our teams. We talked about how COVID was going to affect the league this year. And, it seems like, based on Twitter, everyone's kind of scrambling the same way. So you're not alone. Everyone out there, you are not alone. Everyone is kind of feeling the same stress of, hey, should I play this guy? No one knows any clarification. They don't want to pivot from Stephon Diggs to, somebody like a Mecole Hardman if they don't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like you have a surefire guy who's going to put up a touchdown, some points, and then you're going to have to pivot to somebody who you're throwing a crapshoot real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, and then you're looking at the waiver wire and it's like everyone's scrambling to grab any value off of it. The bench spots are probably not even made for something like this drastically to hit our teams. I know that I've ran into that where even just this morning we had waivers to where you'd have to wait until 9 a.m. or you'd have to wait until the next day, and the commissioner's like, hey, I got to change these settings because literally you guys are going to be screwed if I don't. So it's one of those things where it's.
Sorry about that, David. I was just going to ask you because you brought it up earlier, so I wanted to see what you're doing there. You mentioned the one league where you've got Cam and Josh Allen there. So what are you looking at doing here? What move are you making? Are you trying to hold out for clarity? Are you getting ahead of it and trying to make something happen right now?
Well, luckily in that league, it's a 1 QB league.
Okay.
So I see that there's a Gardner Minshew on the waivers. I see a Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta. So I have like a play in my head and I'll probably go Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta. Atlanta hasn't been able to stop a nosebleed. So, in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, I pivot to Teddy Bridgewater. He throws 2 TDs, maybe get some rushing yards, and he puts up, a solid, 15 to 20 points. And, he's no Josh Allen, but at worst, he's playing against an Atlanta defense, and maybe he throws 3 TDs. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, and then, somebody like Jared Goff is also on waivers. They're playing Washington. Jared Goff has also always been one of those polarizing players where he can look really hot or he can look really not. So, against a Washington defense where they just removed Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen starting, I'm thinking that maybe they might get a quick early pick, get some good field position, and Jared Goff be able to look like a star with Sean McVay, scheming behind over there. So, I've been faced with a couple tough decisions. How about you, Keith? Any come to mind for you?
just as I look at that, I like your pick of Bridgewater there, and kind of looking at what you're looking at there. He looked really good last week, obviously. Put an additional 18-yard rushing score on the paper as well. So he does provide you that opportunity. I guess with both him and Minshew, and Goff, I mean, you honestly can't go wrong with any three of those. It's a situation where. I think with the Carolina Atlanta game, and then with the Houston Texans Jaguars game, I mean, I think you're talking potential shootout, and all four quarterbacks involved in those games are going to be throwing the ball all over the yard. I think as I look at that one, I would probably put Goff at number 3 behind those guys, Bridgewater and Minshew. It definitely is a coin toss. With Goff, like you mentioned it, with Kyle Allen getting the start there, I could definitely see the Rams jumping up early, jumping up big, and just kind of riding that thing, through that running back by committee they've got there in the backfield. So I think you do run a little bit of risk of Goff just not having as much volume as the other options that you talked about, but you're looking good there. So. But you made mention of it too, real quick. Just the fact that managers out there, they need to be on top of it, because we're talking about a 7-game early slate here with the 10 o'clock kickoff, 11 o'clock my time, and then you're only talking 3 afternoon games, and so your options, you've got to make moves early.
So I'm gonna show this to the camera. I don't know if you guys can see this, but. You see, this is one of my dynasty leagues. And
okay.
You see I have Josh Allen, Zeke, Jacobs, Robinson, Chark, Moore. And then I'm going to scroll up to my bench.
Okay.
So this is a real life situation where I have Rodgers on bye.
Yep.
I have, so it's like now I'm in a situation where it's a shallow bench.
Yeah.
And I have to either drop Dobbins, T.Y. Hilton, or I don't want to drop Rodgers,
no.
This is a dynasty. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But I also don't want to drop Dobbins in a dynasty league. And T.Y. Hilton, I'm like thinking, should I drop him so I can pick up a quarterback that might play? Like, it's like, it's a sticky situation. I'm like, you guys need to figure this out, because we're very short on the benches, and I'm thinking maybe I have to drop a kicker this week and play with no kicker, because it's like, Who knows? I'd rather go without a kicker than drop one of these players that I can use.
Well, kind of interesting plug as you look at that, though. I was obviously as you're prepping for the week and taking a look at the information available to you, I think you'd be safe with Ty in that situation, is having Ty be the guy that you get rid of. Obviously, like you said, it's dynasty. We go back. I believe it's 15 games for Ty Hilton since his last 100-yard receiving game. So with that, the last time he had one was with Andrew Luck under center, and he just has not produced it. Lost you there, buddy. I didn't hear you. We lost your volume.
Like, I saw AJ Green on waivers in one league this week.
Oh, all right. So looks like we might have lost David here on some technical difficulties there. Matt, do we have any questions that have come in for this week or anything yet? See if we've got anything here.
Yeah. So essentially, we have some start sits that I've gotten, and I'll shoot you over some real quick.
Okay. All right. So, as I get those, I'll put kind
Just
of my
talk about kind of your lineup. Do you have any kind of questions through your personal lineup?
Again, on my stuff, I don't know how I've dodged the bullet, but I have done so. Really, the biggest question mark that I have in one league here again, and it's shallow bench on the league. I've got Michael Thomas sitting in a flex right now as we wait to hear on clarity of that. That's another big thing for anybody that's listening out there. If you got guys that are potential question marks, the play is pretty much always to put those guys in your flex. That way you're not locked out of a position. Obviously your flex is going to give you the most availability or flexibility to plug back in a running back, a tight end if it happens to be that way, or a wide receiver off your bench. So for me, I've got Michael Thomas sitting in a flex spot right now as we await clarity. I'm hoping that they announce it pretty early because my pivot off of that, I'm going to end up putting Jerick McKinnon into the flex, and obviously they've got the afternoon slate, so I've got a little bit of a window here, but that's what I'm looking at with that one. But that's pretty much my biggest question mark of the week personally, so I'm sitting all right compared to a lot of people. David, there he is. If we get him back here. He's working. All right, he's still working. All right, so I'm going to wait for Matt to kick me over. Some start-sit questions that you guys sent in for the week. Obviously, if you're listening, I know he's got it up live as well. So if you've got any questions that have come up for you just specifically this morning with the news of, the Titans, not Titans, but with the Patriots-Broncos game getting bumped, if you got some question marks over, hey, what dart throw do I need to go to now with news that I've lost that opportunity, let us know. Plug them in there. Matt will kick them over, and we can go from there. So, all right.
Yeah,
There you are, buddy.
I'm with you guys, man. It's again, my iPad just boom, bada bing. I don't know if it just died again. So I got the charger on it too, but I'm just like, sheesh, come on. How's it die with the charger on it? That's interesting. So yeah, no, there's been, quite a few situations like, in my personal leagues where I'm just waiting for more information on this Buffalo game because it's, other than that, it's gonna impact me significantly. I've already kind of started in leagues where I can have a little bit of depth. I'm having to play guys like, Cam Akers, and I just put him in there just in case for Singletary. And it's kind of like, I'm starting to get a little hesitant if the NFL can afford a few more weeks like this because, what happens if, another team has a breakout like the Titans, because we're looking at, I'm pulling Derrick Henry out of my other league too, where, I just, at this point, even though my option is very, it's not looking good. I'm having to put Naheem Hines in for him, which is not ideal,
No.
but not ideal at all. It's PPR again. It's a long shot. I just picked him up off waivers, and I'm not feeling too confident about it. I'm just kind of like, well, I need a body in there at this point.
Yeah.
I'm just literally putting in a body. I have a lot more wide receiver depth in that league. I have George Kittle, who's had coming off a monster game. I have, I think I have in that league, I have Allen Robinson, who got me some points in this most recent game. He did some things. My quarterback situation, that one's a super flex. So I'm rolling with Drew Brees and Derek Carr. So I'm thinking they might, put up some decent points. And then I also have in that league, Joe Mixon, who finally had a breakout game, which is kind of nice. And then in another league, I'm having to roll with because I've lost Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. I'm having to roll with Henderson and Myles Gaskins.
Okay.
But I do have Cooper Kupp. I do have Juju Smith-Schuster. I have Travis Kelce. I have, as my quarterback, I have Matt Ryan. This is also a super flex. I have Matt Ryan, and also have Joe Burrow as my other super flex. So it's been leaving me with some very situations where I didn't plan on being on in this season. So everyone out there, I'm right there with you. These are some dark times in the fantasy where you're forced with some some decisions you just don't want to be in. And the thing you have to hold your hat on is that everyone's being forced with the same decisions. Everyone's lineups are not going to be as optimal as they would like. And hopefully your opponent is getting hit as hard as you are, because
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's going to make it a little bit more fair. And the NFL's talking about how the equity is not going to be fair this year. There's going to be teams where have to play 13 straight games now, a la the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it looks like when the Titans if and when they do play, they're going to have to play straight games. And what happens if there's an injury? It's lots going on there. So yeah, I know we have some questions coming on in too about start sits. So I think let me see if I can pull some of these up
get some
here.
access to those or something there, buddy.
Yeah. Is there any recent news you're seeing on Twitter either?
Nothing yet. I've got the phone sitting here, and the alerts are popping in, but nothing yet on that Titans Bills game. I think that's obviously the one that everybody's sitting on at this point. Just waiting to see what we find out here, guys. So we are again in the same situation as a lot of you guys with that. But again, and David made some good points in there as he was going through. As fantasy managers, we're stuck in the same situation as a lot of people when it comes to the equity of what we're dealing with. We talked about it last week. It was something that I really kind of brought up. Was talking about what do we do here with having to pivot and those things. And I said, you got to stay active, just keep an eye on it and, make sure you got your alerts. David here is kicking in a couple of these start sit decisions for me. Looks like we're looking at a couple quarterback plays. We've got in one league, we've got Big Ben, Jared Goff, our Teddy B. As I look at that, I already talked a little bit regarding where I see Teddy B and Goff. But in this situation, I'm going to go Big Ben as my start. Teddy B would be my number 2 out of that list, and then Goff being the third. Again, Goff, matchup-wise, it's a great matchup. It's a matchup that he would normally, I think, would light it up potentially. But given the fact that I think they are going to jump out early, I just don't see the value there. Big Ben's coming off a bye week, and I think for his career, Big Ben averages close to 21 points per game after a bye. So I think you're looking at a pretty safe play there in terms of what you're going to get. You're also getting a healthy Deontay Johnson back this week. The Steelers across the board. At the skill position group, Big Ben's got a wealth of weapons at his availability, and they're healthy and coming off a bye. So I'm going Big Ben in that one. What do you think, David?
I mean, you can't help but ignore the fact that, the Steelers are firing on all cylinders right now. They got James Conner. They got Juju. Deontay, like you said, is back from the concussion. They got a rookie in Claypool who looks like he's capable of making some big, big plays.
Yeah.
Seen with 70+ yard touchdown. He's hitting Ebron, the tight end. So it's hard to pivot from Big Ben. I'm saying that as a Big Ben owner, too. But Jared Goff also has a great matchup, and so does Teddy B. So Jared Goff, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He's a guy that can throw for four TDs, 3 TDs. Get hot if he's in that Sean McVay offense, look like a superstar, or sometimes he doesn't.
Or not.
Or not. So it's one of those things where I think that Big Ben has that floor that you're kind of looking for, and I think he's probably guaranteed 2 TDs.
Yeah.
Maybe James Conner runs one or Snell runs one, but at least 2 TDs and 250 plus.
Yep.
So I'm leaning towards him. I like also the Teddy Bridgewater matchup. I told you that I picked him up in one league specifically where he's playing against an Atlanta defense who, forgot who they are. They're not playing with any pride. It looks like their coach might get fired, at some point.
At any point, you just wait for every Monday morning with that guy, poor Dan Quinn,
Yeah, you're not knowing, between him and Adam Gase, and you're just not sure who's going next, right? That's the joke.
Yeah,
if everyone knows
chopping block action there.
When will Adam Gase go? But yeah, no. Kind of moving on to the next one too that I've gotten just coming in. Who do you got, Mostert or LVB?
Okay, so we got Raheem, and who was the other one that we said?
Raheem Mostert or Le'Veon Bell?
Oof. This is an interesting one. And then after we finish this one, I do see that we had another quarterback question come in there with Joey Burrow or Jimmy G. So we'll hit that one next. But with this running back question, this is really a great question, in all honesty. You got Mostert coming back off of an injury. So we're not quite sure, what his workload is going to be. Obviously, McKinnon has looked great in his absence in the last couple of weeks. And then Le'Veon, this is going to be his first action back coming off the IR. They just activated him. So obviously we know he's starting. Realistically, though, I would still lean towards Mostert. It is close. I understand why the question is there. For me, it just boils down to the fact of, we know we're going to see a competent, skilled offense there in San Francisco. And even in limited touches, Mostert in the past has just done phenomenal work. I mean, he's not a volume guy. He doesn't need the volume to be productive for you. So I'm leaning with Mostert in that one. Le'Veon obviously is going to see the volume, but you're basically hoping that he catches some passes in your PPR league and somehow finds the end zone, because we're talking about the ghost of Joe Flacco starting that game against Arizona. So I don't expect a lot out of the Jets offense overall. What do you think, David?
Yeah, man, it's really one of those tougher situations because both are coming back from an injury. And normally, I'm one of the guys who's if a guy's coming off injury, and they haven't had a full week of practice, and I'm thinking sit them. So normally, in a normal season, I would probably have you sit both. But right now, given the situation, you definitely have to start one. And, I like the way I've been watching the 49er games almost in full all season. And Jerick McKinnon has looked better and better every week. I think that his role is not going to go away this week. So I think they're going to ease in, Mostert, just because, even if, no matter how close Jerick and Mostert are, I think that because he's coming off injury, they're not going to just throw him right into the dungeon.
Yeah.
Where Jerick's been playing. So I think that he gets maybe 10 touches at most. And like you said, he's very efficient with his touches. So he very well could go, 60 yards and a TD. But I think this week, because Le'Veon started practicing, I think last week, I'm going to go Le'Veon. And that's very, very by thread. That's just because the lack of weapons. Joe Flacco's under center. Maybe they mix it up and they're, who knows? No Darnold. They got Flacco. Maybe Flacco gives some, Ravens Super Bowl magic and turns Le'Veon Bell into a point PPR scorer this week. So
definitely
go slightly Le'Veon this week. And I see what you mean.
Yeah, I think you kind of bring up a good point or a good way to look at it. And I bring this up kind of on a weekly as we do these start sits. A lot of it, you also need to take into consideration what you feel you need overall. Do you need a floor or do you need a ceiling? Because if you're simply needing a floor, I think Le'Veon's definitely the safer floor because he's going to see that volume. He's going to see the touches. If you're like, I need a wild card. I need somebody that's got the potential to pop off, a big run and put 6 on the board, or a big catch and run, put 6 on the board. that home run threat, I think is going to be Mostert for you. But I agree with you spot on. I was going to ask you how many touches you figure, because I foresee 8 to 12 touches for Mostert, and you're saying 10. So, I mean, we're right in the same ballpark there. So again, to the fantasy owner or manager that put this question in, look at your overall lineup. Ask yourself, what do I need? Do I need a floor? If it's a floor, I think you're safe with Le'Veon. He's going to see the value. If it's, hey, I need ceiling and I need somebody that might pop one and score me 6, then I think it's Mostert. But it can go either way depending on what you need for sure.
And
all right, Dave, what we got next?
That segues into our, from Jarrell Exposito. He asks, and shout out to Jarrell for the question. He asked about Jimmy G or Joe Burrow. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think in this one, I've got to go Burrow. And it's just because what I expect to see out of that offense overall. He's gone for 300 plus in the last 3 games. He's the real deal. A ton of options in the passing game there. They're starting to mix Joe Mixon in there a little bit more, which we've all been hoping to see. You made mention of the fact that Mixon, finally had that blow-up game last week. So I think that helps him going into this week. That just means that, defenses have got to, respect it and probably continue to put more guys in the box, open up more opportunities for Burrow to go ahead and air it out. This is also a game where I would expect the Bengals to be playing from behind. We love garbage time points in fantasy football. Garbage time points are a real thing. So Burrow, I think, is definitely the play here. With Jimmy G, you don't get the volume out of him. That's a run first offense. And especially now that you're talking about getting Mostert back, you got Mostert, you got McKinnon. I still expect to see Jeff Wilson Jr. Active here today as well, possibly mixed in for a couple touches. So I think just the passing game volume and what we expect out of the Bengals in a matchup that they should be trailing most of the day, I would go Burrow. What do you think, David?
I think that in terms of fantasy, you have to go with Burrow because they will be trailing. They're going to have to sling the ball. And like you said, garbage time points, that's what we're all banking for. That's why we chose Burrow. Jimmy G, it looks like they'll probably be leading the game. They're going to run the ball. And I don't think they're going to force him to do too much coming off an injury. He's coming off an injury as well. So I think, I'm going to agree with Joe Burrow on that one. Thank you for the question, by the way, on that. That was a great question. So we have another one, and I'm not going to go – I'm going to go ahead and put this up because it sounds like it would be a fake name. But B Boop is the name.
Okay.
And he says, sit one of these in half-point PPR. He says Gallup, DJ Moore, Higgins, or Shenault. Sit one.
Oof. DJ Moore's definitely playing for me. DJ Moore's definitely staying in there. That's without question. And I'm going to kick this question to you pretty quick after I answer it, but I'm going to let you elaborate on it. For me, it's Michael Gallup, and I'm going Michael Gallup. And that's why you knew what I was saying. You knew what I was saying. You had a great take on Michael Gallup last week. And I'm looking at that box score following the Browns game, and you're like sitting there thinking to yourself, how do you throw for 500 yards and everything that Dak does in this game? And Gallup gets what did he get? 26 of those or something? A massive snap count, massive snap share there for Gallup last week as well. So it's not like he wasn't on the field, but just not involved. So because of that, and that's the problem, that's my biggest problem with Gallup right now is the fact that we've seen 1 blow-up game and then 3 pretty much duds. So Chenault is getting more and more involved on a weekly basis. That Thursday night game against the Dolphins there, from a couple weeks back, getting to see him in prime time. The fact that, they also get the ball to him in the running game, he gives you a little bit more. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that we kind of think that Higgins is starting to bump AJ a little bit. And again, we talked about that game just a minute ago with the Burrow Jimmy G question. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for Higgins to potentially get, a few catches in there and maybe cross the chalk again. So for me, it'd be Gallup. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and throw that to you. I'm not sure which way you're looking, but I just loved your take on Gallup from last week and figured that you'd probably continue to roll that trend possibly.
You know what, man? I know how I talked about Gallup, and I still feel pretty strongly about him. And my real situation with him is that he's running a lot of the routes where like clear out routes. Like when you played football, I played football, and there's like a certain wide receiver that basically their job is to hold the safety honest.
Yep.
And make sure that, and the quarterback's probably not going to throw to him unless he's wide the freak open. But his job is to clear out one of those safeties.
Yep.
And then now the underneath or the hot route is open.
Yep.
And that's the first route you're going to. And then you're looking back, oh, is he open deep downfield? So that's what when I've watched the Cowboy games, I've seen Gallup in that role where he's trying to hold the safety, and that's his main job. He's doing his job.
Yeah.
Because they're putting up how many yards of offense every week.
Yeah.
He's holding that safety honest, it's a real job in football. You have to do that, So it's allowing Amari Cooper to work the underneath. That's allowing CeeDee Lamb to do the spot. That's allowing Schultz to get those, basic touchdowns, those catches, those out routes. So I'm just, I think that Gallup is going to have those games where you're like, why didn't I start him? He's, clearly a talented wide receiver. Look at he's a physical specimen. On any other team, he'd probably be like a surefire starter, in terms of getting targets. But when you got all these talented players like Zeke and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, it's really, they have to make the easy play. And in this situation, Gallup's in a role where he's not going to be the easy look. He's not going to be the easy target. So that's my concern with him. T. Higgins, man, he's one of those players where, I've heard a lot of good things, even coming into playing Dynasty. T. Higgins was a hot commodity name.
Yeah.
I've watched him, and I like how he's been progressing as a player. I like that he has AJ Brown mentoring him. I love that he's going to be able to grow with Burrow. So kind of like what you said, I see his role ever expanding. And, he already has the physical tools where he's probably superior to like AJ Green at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We can all agree that Tyler Boyd is probably the top dog over there. And in terms of Chenault, one of the things with him is I saw an interesting stat. He's the only player outside of Robert Woods to have at least 4 targets and 1 carry every game this season. So that just goes to show me how they're utilizing him. He's versatile. He's what Curtis Samuel should be doing.
Right.
He's what the Curtis Samuel owners hoped he would be. I'm not, this one's a lot closer than what we thought. And great question over here, Beeboo Beep. So I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I think that for upside, DJ Moore this is the game where he gets out of his little slump. They're playing against the Atlanta Falcons. And like we talked about, that defense is lost.
We think they have a defense. We don't know.
Yeah. Do they even have a defense? So Higgins, I think, but they're running 3 wide receiver routes. Higgins is going to be on the field.
Yeah.
He's shown that he can make big touchdown catches. He's got sure hands, and it looks like Burrow's trusting him, and Chenault they're using. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on this one. And I really don't want to, because I think that I'm disrespecting Gallup, because if anything, he's a talent. But yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that, Keith. So yeah, thank you, Beeboo Beep. That was a good question, and it's probably not the answer that you wanted to hear, but we're gonna go with DJ Moore, Higgins, and Chenault this week only. So
yeah,
we'll
that's
see how
to be a
that goes.
situation that he exactly. He's going to have to reevaluate, that situation almost on a weekly basis, see what our matchups are and those things. But I think we both feel pretty confident in our decision to say Gallup's our sit this week out of that group.
So it looks like some NFL changes are just dropping. Did you see that?
What do we got, buddy? My phone just blew up too. So
It says Broncos Pats week 6. It says Chargers Broncos are week 8, and Dolphins Broncos are week 11 now.
okay.
So the Broncos Dolphins game that was supposed to be next week is now week 11,
Okay.
and the interconference game Chargers Broncos is week 8. So do I know what that means for implications yet? No. But
Because
hey,
by next week we're talking totally different situation.
yeah, the scenarios are now different.
Yeah.
And expect that every week it's going to be looking like there's going to be some new situations. Be ready to pivot. Be ready to make changes. Be fluid. Can't be mad. If you were to ask everyone, hey, there's going to be some schedule changes, but do you want football? What would you say?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's right on you. We want to see the game, and we're happy that we've been able to get through 4 weeks and we're ready to start week 5, and we'll take it whatever way we can get it. Also want to just, highlight something that David said earlier when I was asking him specifically about his own lineups. He was very aware of what options were available for him to pivot to at the quarterback spot. So again, I know I brought it up, but I just want to continue to highlight that. Know your league, know your wire, know what's available to pivot to, and be ready to make a move quick when you hear the news drop on any specific schedule changes. Be ready to go. So that was a good one there. I think David's probably looking over to see if we've got any additional questions, so he'll bounce back in here in just a second. But again, for those of you that have brought questions to the table to this point, I definitely want to thank you for what you brought in for us. Definitely some great questions this week, guys. And I think if we've highlighted anything too with the questions that we have received, we definitely understand why you guys have those questions, because there have been, some real close calls. But hopefully we've provided, kind of our thought process and why we would pick the guys that we would. Again, my biggest takeaway for any fantasy manager when you're doing this is look at your matchup for the week. And again, it's about identifying when you're picking between guys and it's that close, identify what you feel like you're going to need more. Are you already projected to lose by 15, 20 points? Then, hey, it's an upside swing all day long. Make that upside pick. If you're talking projections are showing you guys neck and neck, or maybe you're, inching out a win, then you might want to be looking at the safer floor option. So, again, look at your matchup. Know what you might need to be successful for this week. That'll help. That can potentially help swing your vote. Obviously, we try our best to be very active with the trends. Looking back over game scripts from the past couple weeks and those things, and making a move. All right, so David just shot me in one here. We've got a couple more coming in here. Some great receiver questions, and then we've got looks like a flex question here. We're going to start with that flex question. We've got Terry McLaurin or Joe Mixon here. So we're looking at a situation here. Terry McLaurin obviously is he's got a new starting quarterback this week with Kyle Allen. And in that one there, with that matchup, with that game with Kyle Allen coming in, a couple of things to remember with that quarterback switch, though. Okay, Kyle Allen is a guy that came up to Washington, followed that coaching change, followed that regime change there with the offensive coordinator with Scott Turner and with Ron Rivera. So Kyle Allen was kind of like a handpicked guy for them to bring on board. He's a guy that both those coaches felt very comfortable with. I mean, this is a situation where, obviously they had Cam Newton as well, and they didn't make a run at him. So obviously they feel really confident and comfortable with that switch to Kyle Allen. If we talk about what DJ Moore did last year with him under center, finished up wide receiver 16 overall in the year. Honestly, Terry McLaurin is just as talented, if not more talented than DJ Moore. And you're talking about an offense there in Washington that just does not have a whole lot of weapons. So for me, honestly, I would probably go ahead and stay with Terry McLaurin here. You're talking about an offense that's got McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. And they're going to be needing to probably play catch up in this game against the Rams. So that's my pick. Mixon is still a pretty good play here as well. But realistically in this game against the Ravens run defense has looked predominantly stronger than their pass defense has throughout the year. And we've highlighted throughout the show about the fact that the Bengals overall, have just a few more weapons overall. You're talking about 3 wide receivers that can get the job done there with T. Higgins, AJ Green, and Tyler Boyd. And then you've got Mixon to mix in there as well. So, they're a situation, tough run defense, and a lot more weapons available there. So for me, I'm going McLaurin. David, what do you think on that question there, McLaurin or Mixon?
I thought that was an excellent question. And they prefaced it with saying that they went Ronald Jones for their RB2 to start.
Okay.
And they also had Josh Jacobs. So they went Josh Jacobs, Ronald Jones, and Ronald Jones had over 100 yards. So that was a great play for them.
Yep.
And so Joe Mixon, he's had a putrid first quarter to the season. Last week, he did score 3 touchdowns. Don't expect that against Baltimore. Lamar Jackson and company are coming off of, some they lost to Kansas City. They bounced back, but I think they're again trying to assert that they are one of the top tier teams.
Yeah.
This is a division game. First time they played Joe Burrow and co. So I think they're pumped up. I think their main goal is to stop Joe Mixon. And so I think, Terry McLaurin does play against Jalen Ramsey, which I'm scared about, but they're going to have to throw the ball to somebody. Kyle Allen's going to have to force the ball there. And I think he gets over 10 targets. And I think that amounts to something. So I'm with you. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to go Terry McLaurin over Joe Mixon. And I think that's going to be one of the harder decisions that you'll have to make. But at the end of the day, if you're in a situation where you can play Terry McLaurin or Joe Mixon, you're not in bad shape, right?
No. Yeah. Overall, that's got to be a decent roster. So.
Yeah. So I think just for this week, they're playing catch up against Jared Goff and co. They're going to have to throw the ball. Kyle and Allen may make a few mistakes, but that doesn't matter because you're playing Terry McLaurin. He's going to get the targets. And then we had another question, right?
Yep. You put another one in there. CD or Devontae Parker. So which way are you going on that one, man?
This game is one of those games where it could be a trap game for Devontae Parker, but because the fact that Preston Williams has been non-existent, they do have another wide receiver over there who's been getting some shine. Isaiah Ford, watch out for him in deep leagues in Dynasty. Go pick him up. He's kind of overpassed Preston Williams as that number 2 go-to.
Yeah, the targets definitely have been more there for him than Williams. Yep, I agree with you.
But I can't not go with my guy Devontae Parker. I have him in few leagues. I got him deep down in the drafts this year. I don't think people thought he can replicate what he did last year. I'm actually doing the opposite. I think that he can build on that. I think that he should do similar numbers. Him and Ryan Fitzpatrick have a good connection. And that 49er defense, they're going to do everything they can to stop him, stop the run game, and they will stop the run game. So they're going to have to throw the ball.
They're gonna have to throw it early and often because those run yards are gonna be few and far between. So I'm going Devontae Parker, even though I'm a big CeeDee Lamb fan, huge CeeDee Lamb fan. And I think that he's a number one in the making. But as of now, I'm going Devontae Parker with the hopes that he scores a touchdown this week. I think he goes for a touchdown in 75. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. 100% in agreement with you. Again, another excellent question. I can see why it comes in. We've got CD coming off a 2-touchdown game last week. But you hit on it. Devontae Parker is, the unheralded number one in that offense. He's seeing a massive target share coming off a game, 10 catches, $118 there last week. And value's king. He's going to continue to see the targets. He's going to demand the targets. I agree with you 100% on what that is. I mentioned it last week. I actually swung a trade that netted me Parker as part of a package deal coming into the week, and I was very happy in a full point PPR to see what he put up, with the 10 and the $118. So I'm going with you on that one. I'm going Devontae Parker, even though I am a 49ers fan personally. We've talked about this plenty, but when it comes to your fantasy lineup decisions, you take that element away from it. You got to start who you got to start to put you in the best position for success. Devontae Parker is in one of my lineups as well this week, so that's where we're going. Definitely.
Yeah, guys, and we appreciate everyone who's been tuning in, everyone who's been following along the journey. Keith, man, love your analysis as always. We hope I think your 49ers roll again this week and they get the big win against Miami. Things are looking forward for them. They're getting some of their players back. George Kittle looked amazing.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this football, guys. Don't get too down on your teams. Everyone is going through this. It's the first week of the second quarter of fantasy football. You got to look at it like that.
Yep.
The first 4 weeks are gone, dead and gone. Forget about those weeks. We're week 1 of the second quarter. So game championships are built upon in these early quarters. Keep building the momentum, keep making the pickups. We've talked about, how, picking up guys like James Robinson, Myles Gaskins, some of these rookies are going to pay off a lot later in the year. And, keep following along the journey. We've talked about, the Tanyans. We've talked about the Russell Gages. We've talked about how CD was going to supplant Gallup at some point, and it looks like he already has.
Yep.
Along with our analysis, we dropped some gems for you guys to win your leagues, and we're excited to be here. And thank you guys for giving some questions this week. We've had a lot of fun with you guys. Keith, any words?
One last thing here. Just want to put it out here. Alert just came through. A couple different alerts here.
Sure.
Julio Jones is going to be inactive today. Okay, so they just announced Julio is inactive against Carolina. That one just came through.
Okay.
Henry Ruggs is going to be active against the Chiefs. Okay, so we've got Henry Ruggs back in the lineup for the Raiders. Julio is out. And, of course, we already knew this, but they went ahead and put it out there. Le'Veon is active here today. Expect him to draw the start for the Jets and see, that normal workman's type load that he sees, and see what he does this week. So there you go.
Everyone needs to keep checking. I mean, we talked about early on in this, run pass option stream that, the Bills – Titans game, keep checking. We have an hour and a half, until kickoff for the 10 a.m. games. Just be ready to make those adjustments in your lineups because, the longer they wait, it just scares me a little bit, guys. I'm like this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're kind of thinking the same thing there. The fact that we have not heard an announcement yet, to me, it almost clarifies the fact that I really think that they're looking all over the schedule to see how can we do this? How can we possibly move this, make it work? They were saying, realistically, since it's a Tuesday game, that, if the rest of these tests from this morning come back, come back negative, that it'll probably still be game on. But that's going to be such a fluid situation because we might get negatives here today. They're going to retest again tomorrow. And if they pop a positive tomorrow, that game's definitely not happening. So that's something to consider, guys, as you make your final determination there is, realistically, they're probably waiting the results from the test this morning. And if those are negative, they're going to say game on, but we're going to retest again tomorrow. And if we pop a positive, that game is not happening. And then you're stuck in a situation where you've got to pivot to the Monday night game, and it's your only option. So that's going to be my last thing for this week for you guys. Make sure you know what's available from the Monday night game from on your waiver with New Orleans and with the Chargers in there, because that's going to be your pivot. That's going to be your only opportunity at this point if we do pop a positive tomorrow and they go ahead and shut that game down.
Guys, it's funny that, we're in these situations, and it's actually there's a word for it in chess. It's called zugzwang, where you're forced in a position to make a move where you don't like either moves, and you got to pick the less the move that's going to give you less damage. And again, zugzwang, and it's funny that it's going to apply to fantasy football, but it's what I'm been scouring the waiver wires, and I'm looking at Nyheim Hines, and I'm looking at guys like that I wouldn't normally play, like and Greg Ward's not that bad of a play, but I'm just guys that I would I prefer to play Stephon Diggs or my Kenny Galladay's or my AJ Browns, but you're going to have to play some of these guys that are more deeper league targets, and just have your eyes on them. Be ready. It doesn't mean you have to pick them up just yet, but just be ready to pick them up at a moment's notice. So if you caught anything from that, I think that's the important point this week. Just be ready to make a quick decision, grab somebody and put somebody in your lineup. There's going to be some lazy fantasy managers who didn't make those last minute moves. And, maybe you capitalize against them, but don't be that guy. So, again, have a good week, everybody. Keith, man, always a good time chatting with you.
You bet, buddy. Same to you, man.
Fun times. And let's see, we got something in the chat. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Later.
Take care.